Hello everyone, I'm Amit Tiwari from MicroSave Consulting. We are delighted to host a panel discussion today on a very interesting conversation that affects life of each one of us in developing economies. And topic is that how can an efficient PFM ecosystem accelerate financial inclusion? To begin with, I'll set the context for that. So, we believe poverty alleviation is a major challenge for developing countries. Financial inclusion is the key driver for reducing poverty. However, the financial institutions are not duly aligned to cater to the financial inclusion initiatives. On the other hand, countries like India have shown the way that PFM can be an effective tool for financial inclusion. So, to discuss how an efficient PFM ecosystem can accelerate financial inclusion, we are discussing with eminent speakers today. They are renowned professional in their respective fields, and their voices can be inspiration for many professionals across the developing countries. So, to discuss how an efficient PFM ecosystem can accelerate financial inclusion, we have panelists with us, Mr. Alok Verma. Alok is a technical assistant advisor at IMF. He provides technical assistance to governments in Europe, Africa, and Middle East. Prior to joining IMF, he worked with Ministry of Finance, Government of India, and was one of the key architects in designing the PFM ecosystem that we have in India, and that accelerated the financial inclusion space in India. And our another eminent personality with us is Mr. Geral. He's the Chief Information Officer in Kaduna State in Nigeria. He is an experienced technology professional and worked with the public sector in Nigeria. He's passionate about governance reform, leveraging technology in Nigeria and Africa region. And our third eminent speaker is Mr. Tanmay Chakravarti. He is a Group Government Affairs Officer at Tata Sons Private Limited. Tata Sons is the group parent company that has over 101 subsidiary companies in India. And in fact, this is one of the largest industry group in India. Earlier, Tanmay was the Vice President and Global Head for Government Industry Solutions in TCS. TCS is one of the largest IT service provider in India. And he has been driver in using technology and accelerating the pace of governance reform in many projects in India, whether it is passport, corporate affairs, and many such initiatives. So he's well-known personality in India. And I'm Amit Tiwari. I work with MicroSave Consulting. MicroSave is a boutique consulting firm, and we work in the financial inclusion space, and we operate in India, Africa, and many other countries. And we are honored to host this eminent panel today. And the concern that we are discussing is vital for entire developing countries. And without wasting time, I'll ask the first question to Mr. Alok. Alok, how does an effective PFM ecosystem contribute in accelerating the pace of financial inclusion? Could you please throw some light on how these issues are related?
Yeah, thanks, Amit, and I'm really honored also to join this panel and discuss an issue which is very close to my heart. Since I started working in Ministry of Finance in Government of India. So coming back to your question on the PFM ecosystem. So as I understand, PFM ecosystem actually, in short, I can say it stands for number of systems that supports fiscal policy making as well as its implementation. And when I say its implementation, it means like the budget preparation, execution, financial reporting, and also audit part of it. And in my opinion, an efficient government payment system for the budget execution is a key enabler for financial inclusion. Uh, for example, in India, as you mentioned, when this public financial management system was developed to improve management of cash transfer programs, and because of this efficient system, actually government mandated cash transfers in bank account, which was earlier done in by delivering physical cash to the beneficiaries at in the villages. And actually, that led to opening of large number of bank accounts of program beneficiaries, leading to financial inclusion. And interestingly, it has also brought not only individual beneficiary but also some small government units, like you had in India, like these village health and sanitation committees at the village level, and also Rogi Kalyan Samitis at the hospitals, which were like dealing with cash, and they were not, part of the banking system. So they were also brought into the banking system because of efficient public financial management. And therefore, this efficient public financial management systems are particularly for cash transfer at different levels of government, actually accelerate financial inclusion, and therefore sometimes like these digital payments systems are one of the pillars of national financial inclusion strategy. And for example, in Jordan, uh, and another example I will take is of financial technologies, that is the fintech, and like mobile money, which promotes financial inclusion by bringing in, unbanked population, as well as like reaching out to population which are in remote locations. However, to basically leverage that fintech, there is need to also improve like PFM systems and make them more efficient. And for example, seamless transfer of funds. Now, new payment and settlement systems which are coming up, having like interoperability between mobile wallets as well as bank accounts, where you can transfer seamlessly between mobile wallet to another bank account. That will also require, some updates or some revamping of PFM IT systems, also like the IFMIS, particularly in the management of beneficiaries, to integrate mobile wallets into it. So, and another aspect, like these trends were also accelerated during the COVID-19 pandemic, and those countries which were having more efficient PFM IT systems were able to basically scale up and leverage these PFM IT systems to reach out to, large chunk of population, and were able to save lives and livelihood, actually. So it is important, and therefore I think efficient PFM systems are very critical in government's role to improve financial inclusion, actually.
Yeah, look, thank you for your response. And we at MSC also believe in the same way that PFM is one of the key driver for sustainable financial inclusion and also other developmental outcomes as well. And this is one of the key pillars to solving the problem of no poverty, is just the key SDG goal that we all are pursuing. So now, taking lead from here, I'm moving to Mr. Giral. So how do you see? Do you see any regional variation? Alok, extending the conversation, what Alok said, that PFM ecosystem plays a very crucial role in financial inclusion, and his other experience also suggests the same thing. So, how do you see a situation in Africa region, and especially in Nigeria? And what are the things that you believe PFM can solve in financial inclusion space?
Well, okay, so there are certain similarities for Africa. Alok spoke about conditional cash transfer. Well, we call it conditional cash transfers. Some of the challenges that they've had now is that there has been a disconnect between the government's PFM system environment and the whole space around benefits administration and all that. So, and one of the areas that we need to work on, okay, which is central to both systems in different ways, is identity, okay? Because if you do not have, you can't have an efficient benefits administration system where we have different systems, whether it is it's helping micro enterprises, people who you just need the odd, what we call 10,000 naira. 10,000 naira is today a little over, is less than $15 effectively, but it makes a lot of difference to somebody. So, and if you cannot identify them, then you cannot effectively support them. And so you can't have that seamlessness that you're speaking about from the PFM systems of the government into the bottom of the pyramid, is where the people who actually need these benefits, who are in need of financial inclusion. Okay, so that's one of the challenges. And of course, we also have the infrastructure, the technology infrastructure challenge, in terms of saying you need to get to the neediest people typically are in the furthest to reach areas. Okay, so some of these fundamentals have to be put in place before you can actually be as effective as you need to do in aligning your PFM, okay, with the goals of financial inclusion.
Yes, so you have brought a very interesting perspective in the conversation. That the ID system plays a very crucial role in financial inclusion, both from and also contributes in the PFM ecosystem significantly. And second role, that the role of the government in reaching out to bottom of the pyramid, which is essential for the financial inclusion goal. And in developing countries, government acts as a regulator and also needs to act as market creator. So very interesting perspective. Now, taking this perspective of the ID systems, and Mr. Tanmay, I'd like to seek your views on this. That so you have worked very closely with the government, and how do you see these the challenges in financial inclusion space, and how do we address the inclusion and exclusion results in government targeting?
Thank you for the conversation so far has been very interesting, and I would say that in addition to the fact that there needs to be inclusion, digital technology, connectivity, and reach plays a very important role to be able to reach the unreachable. And the other factor is that which many governments are actually not focusing on and are basically depending on market forces to emerge by themselves, is the fact that for us to be able to get everybody into the digital cashless economy, there is the need for moving people from traditional phones to smartphones. Most of the applications today which run digital money are actually sitting on smartphone compatible applications. And unless you are able to equip the people with a device that's going to help them transact and receive and spend digital money, I think reaching the unreachable and the distant people, as Gerald just pointed out, that most of the economically deprived people are also farthest away from civilizational infrastructure and cities. So digital connectivity is very important. And, just like India has realized that the fact is that not only having an efficient UPI system and a PFMS system, but now the BharatNet program, which is basically bringing fiber optic connectivity to every single village, is going to be a catalytic input to be able to realize the digital economy environment. So I would say definitely that countries, and to me, PFM is basically bringing order to the chaos. Some of the things that got us driven to go to a PFM environment was when one of our prime ministers actually said that for every rupee of subsidy, only 11 paisa actually goes to the bona fide, and 89 paisa is actually lost somewhere in the pipeline. And there are lots of parasitical inputs invading that pipeline of subsidy help from the government and taking away. And therefore, you would see for 60, 70 years things remaining the same in spite of so much of rural injection of subsidy that used to happen in the Indian environment. Today, with the advent of direct benefit transfer, we've been able to disintermediate these parasitical intermediaries. And therefore, there is a direct connection between the bona fide beneficiary at the other end of the pipeline and the government giving a digital instruction to a bank to be able to effect a transfer, because we have captured the identity and have brought millions of people from an unbanked economy to a banked economy. So also that is also helping us to move a lot of the economy from the cash rich environment in the economy where disbursement of cash, like Alok just mentioned, was one of the key drivers of putting a PFMS system in place, has now moved a lot of people to digital transfer beneficiaries. And therefore, they're able to have the money without any intervention or parasitical exploitation. And the entire money is actually going to the bona fide. So that's one of the very big plus sides of creating a PFM environment and having digital money backing that PFM environment to be able to deliver the last mile outcome of the benefits of a PFM system. So to answer your question in a very abbreviated kind of summarized form, we need additional technology, environment, available infrastructure to be able to realize the outcome, the real benefits of a PFMS system.
Right, sir. So very interesting conversation and very insightful observation for our global audience. And these are really key learnings for all of us. So taking the conversation forward and to this, another interesting element for financial inclusion is women empowerment. And financial inclusion also supports women empowerment in the society. And one of the MSc studies finds that more than 80% of the female beneficiaries reported that a positive impact of G2P payment in India, especially on household savings and disposable income, and children and education. So on all broad elements, this helps across the developmental need. And in this context, how do you see the role of financial inclusion, PFM ecosystem, and gender empowerment? And what are your suggestions for bringing women on the mainstream? So I'll request Mr. Geral to bring the African perspective to this conversation.
Thank you. So if we speak about the African perspective, within Africa, there are all sorts of, let's take Nigeria. Nigeria is not as big as India, but it's still a large country by global standards. So there are 200 million Nigerians, and you have several flavors culturally. So in certain parts of the country, you could argue that there was more gender equality than you have in other areas. So in some areas, if you without, this could get sensitive, but without stepping on cultural tools, you'd realize that, look, there's some more work that has to be done in some areas. Some places, the women just need to be empowered and they will fly. And in some areas, that attempt at empowerment could be seen as culturally inappropriate. However, what then happens is that what you might also see is that that's so-called pandering to culture is actually some people's cover for malfeasance. Okay, so if you say you have a women empowerment program where you're supposed to give the women $20, whatever, that's a little bit of money to start a business, you would find that the bulk of the women are out of the financial ecosystem. They don't have bank accounts. They may not have identities. They may not have cell phones. Okay, so like in Kaduna, we made a deliberate effort to actually bring women into the ecosystem, because what would typically happen is that you would take your cash transfers and go to a location and give it to the village head or the religious head of the place. And then just like Samuel was talking about, we also had our own fertilizer scams. You don't have an assurance that the intended end beneficiaries, okay? But again, I come back to identity. Now, each, is also an SDG, a unique ID for everybody. So each person now is uniquely identified, ID'd. And so you can actually, online or offline, say that, look, this benefit got to its intended recipient. And we're about to start working on a project now in Kaduna for out-of-street children. Okay, they've gotten them back. They've reunited them with their families. This is part of something that is religious but gone wrong, and the governors in this region, this part of Nigeria, have said no. We're no longer doing this practice. It's called the Almajiri practice that encourages it was actually featured in The Economist about 3 weeks ago, that encourages out-of-street children. The interesting thing is that working with UNICEF, a stipend is being paid to these families once the schools that the kids have been sent to confirm that the kids are regular in school. The money is not being given to the father, who traditionally is the head of the family. The money is given to the mother, who, well, as it were, people would tend to trust more with the money for the children than with the father, who knows whether, So there is some deliberate awareness and effort towards rebalancing the gender situation in terms of FI, financial inclusion. Yeah, and the government is working on it on multiple fronts.
So I completely agree on your observations, and at MSc we believe that PFM ecosystem, because PFM we see public financial management and budgeting as a policy tool that can accelerate any policy reforms, whether it is gender, climate, or any other thing. And sustainability depends on the efficiency and the PFM ecosystem as well. So we completely agree on that. And taking this conversation forward, I would like to request Mr. Tanmay to suggest. You have been leading technology reforms for a long time, and what are your suggestions for reform champions across the globe, and how technology can accelerate the pace in this? The key things that how PFM can play a role in reforming the financial inclusion, number one, and how can it bring more equity in the society as well.
See, I did tax transformation in Zambia, Uganda, Rwanda, Kenya in my past life, and I've had an extensive opportunity to visit various parts of Africa and look at, what the situation is there from a governance perspective and IT in governance perspective in particular. And if you take, for example, our India experience, this is something that we can absolutely share with many countries as to what is the journey that we've been through. And one of the tenets of technology that I believe is that, there is no fun in reinventing the wheel. Most of us have had a colonial background, and therefore many of the systems that are in place are remnants of the British Raj or the British era, and very little has changed since then. And if there is an opportunity to transform, let's say, Kenya, who's also been a British colony, or Nigeria, or in any of the other places, been there, done that perspective can be greatly helpful in compressing the timeline it takes to transform any financial system for any country. I'll give you an example. The first VAT automation that we did in India was Andhra Pradesh, and it took us 18 months to implement VAT in Andhra Pradesh. And the 14th state that we implemented was Himachal Pradesh, which we were able to execute in 3 months. Because by that time, you had created an entire templated approach of transformation of the paper-intensive system that we took as the background and converted into a digital system. I mean, the same thing was the experience in the 4 countries of tax transformation in East Africa, where we started with Uganda. It took us the longest amount of time, URA, and then we took much shorter time for Zambia, for Rwanda, and of course, all of the learnings we were able to deploy to Kenya, which is the largest economy in that region. And we were able to deploy all the different modules of tax transformation in the shortest possible time as compared to the other states. So my input would be the technology inputs need not just be confined to the PFMS platform itself. We have to create an enabling financial environment around the country. The advent of mobile phones, smart mobile phones, must percolate and penetrate the population. The connectivity stability must be there in terms of reach across the country. The ATM bank branchless kind of banking infrastructure must be also available for people to convert that digital money that's coming onto their mobile phones to a little bit of cash that might be required for last mile transactions. So all of these should parallelly progress together. And very often what we see is that we build a car, which ultimately we realize we don't have the wheels to drive. And we keep on focusing on the PFMS or the core system, whereas the other enabling environmental infrastructure of IT doesn't get mature as it ought to parallelly. And that would be my biggest observation for any new country trying to adopt an approach. Build your unique identification system in parallel to your PFMS platform. Build your digital money capability and take lessons from what we have done in India through UPI and create a completely digital, cashless kind of transactional capability between banks and the citizens. Ensure that you have fiber optic connectivity capability reaching every single village in every nook and corner of the country. Without that, it's a basic oxygen for doing internet transactions, which is absolutely the bedrock of any today's net-based financial management system. Ensure that there is smartphone penetration amongst the population so that they will be able to take the benefits of a digital cashless economy, which they cannot do from their feature phones that they have from the past. Ensure that government, in fact, should subsidize, to my mind, the ability for the needy to be able to afford a smartphone. And there could be a potential viability gap funding for ensuring that nobody is left behind in this smart mobile equipped, equally capable to take advantage of the digital economy kind of a population base. I think these are the areas where you have to really focus and not just focus on transforming the core system of the Ministry of Finance or the Department of Finance to move to a digital platform. That, to me, is only the trailer of the movie. The movie comprises of all the other pillars that I just described to you.
So thank you so much for bringing the holistic perspective and highlighting the need for ecosystem approach rather than a system approach here. So taking this conversation forward, and you highlighted a very important point that learning from the past and other good practices is key for the next level reforms, and other countries can adopt and get learnings from these experiences. So I'll now move to Alok. Alok, you bring great, rich experience from the technology side as well as from the financial management side, and you also have a global experience. So taking the conversation forward from where Tanmay left, is there any possibility to develop replicable digital public good for public financial management ecosystem? And can we, and whether that kind of replicable digital public good can be reused in different country contexts? So, what is your take on this?
Amit, in fact, both Tanmay and Geral already mentioned a couple of digital public goods. For example, the infrastructure which Tanmay was mentioning, it is like the digital public infrastructure which is available to countries actually, and digital identity is also a digital public good, which is available to the authorities in country to use it in government payment systems. And in fact, very interestingly, the payment and settlement system is a digital public infrastructure, like the RTGS systems or NEFT systems. And in fact, I think Tanmay mentioned some system which NPCI is developing for mobile-based and instant payment settlements. So those are kind of the digital public goods and infrastructure which is basically being used and also being replicated in many countries. For example, this ACH is now being replicated, and it's almost there in every country. And similarly, this IMPS system, so that kind of the payment and settlement systems are also being replicated. I can see, throughout in AFR region, for example, Lesotho is also coming up with a real-time settlement system and also interoperable system between the bank accounts and mobile wallets and etc. Right? So those are the systems I think which could be very beneficial in promoting efficient PFM systems, by leveraging these kind of public goods. And in fact, another example like the national digital identity, which was mentioned, and there are the different approaches to also put in that kind of digital public good. And one approach, like for example, Asan, Imza in Azerbaijan, where they are having the mobile ID system, and that is also like the PKI-based approach to provide digital IDs to citizens, which can again used for authenticating financial transaction, and also, for example, KYC for opening of bank accounts, right? So these kind of digital public goods are very, very handy in promoting financial inclusion agenda and also making government payment system very much efficient. And these are also being replicated. For example, some few examples which I gave are being also replicated in other countries.
Yeah, thank you, Alok. Your voices can be an inspiration for many change agents. So thank you. So it was really a pleasure, a very great conversation on a very important topic. There was many points where there is a convergence, and there are many points that we further need to deep dive. And all of you have raised various points where the change agent across the globe need to put efforts actually, and we agree that financial inclusion is key to access to address the poverty related issues, and it is the role of the government as well to ensure that the financial products reach to the bottom of the pyramid at a reasonable cost, and they are accessible. And both Tanmay, Alok highlighted the importance of technology. And technology can facilitate the change at the scale, and we don't need to reinvent the wheel. There are many learnings both in Africa region and in Asia region. And we need to take the consolidate good practices and build a kind of a solution that is replicable across the globe. And in this process, we need to follow the ecosystem approach. So thank you all for joining us today for this conversation.